Well, my name is Noll and I'm from Somalia city, Mogadishu. My mom and my whole family decided to move to refugee because there was fight and wars going on in there. So when I was 6 years old, I moved to refugee in Ethiopia. And it was hard for me.
Welcome to Happiness and the City. This is Barbara, and it's just so wonderful to be talking to you. I survived a very dangerous week, and I thank all of you who prayed for me and who understood the nature of the situation I'm dealing with. Today, I'd like to especially thank God who helped me go through this. And I'd like to start with a very short, beautiful piece called Shofar Blowing. It's from Keilat Universal in Israel. And traditionally, this music, this sound, is associated with the sound of God. So when we are in a situation that we really need to call on God, this sound is a great tool. And a lot of people put wonderful shofar music on YouTube, and it really is a wonderful way to connect with God who loves us. And I will be talking today throughout my program about divine security, because when human security fails through weaknesses of flesh and blood, divine security has the power to come through. And divine security rescued me this week from an extremely dangerous situation. So let's listen to this. Let's start from the beginning. Okay. Isn't it beautiful? Just amazing. So we have a lot of talk today about security, different kinds of security, and the outcome of a lot of the discussions about security is complete total ignorance and dissociation from what we should have security for. Traditionally, we'll talk about security and liberty, but frankly, that is not a very good way to look at the two concepts as completely two different things, because true security should ensure liberty. So we are dealing today with an error in thinking that security and liberty are completely two different things. I went through a very difficult period of time last weeks, caused by errors of judgment of a few people who got power from an office in which they sit. And I almost lost my life because of that. And that led me to think a lot about the importance of security in life. And of course, even Declaration of Independence teaches us that we have right to life, right to liberty, and right to pursuit of happiness. So the great founders of modern America understood this, and they understood that liberty without life doesn't make any sense. So life is very important. And I realized that I'm not the only person who is dealing with a security situation. Many people in America and the whole world are dealing with this because there is this dissociation between security, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. True security should prevent separation from liberty, from life, from pursuit of happiness. Let me repeat. True security should prevent separation from life, from liberty, and from pursuit of happiness. So security disconnected from the purpose of security is a threat in itself. And I understood this. So I had an error in thinking myself about the disconnection between security and liberty. I thought it's either security or liberty, but security should prevent us from being disconnected from liberty. So security is connected from the great rights that are in written form in American Declaration of Independence. Security and liberty is also embodied in the great ideas of European crowns, but also of crowns throughout the world. I started reading about it and looking at this from the point of view of connection of security to liberty and life and pursuit of happiness. So, when we have a situation of danger at the level of nations, we have to rethink the concept of security, because those dangers are not going away. They're shifting, and security is getting more complex and more expensive, and is frankly suffocating liberty. So what's the point of having security if we are so restrained we cannot move? So my purpose now is to encourage you, as I'm encouraging myself, to rethink the concept of security. Of course, at the highest level of security is also prevention from separation and joy of living in peace and tranquility. So, when we create a situation that security is only focused on danger, we lose definition of security as peace, as tranquility, or as connector to peace and tranquility. So we have to really admit failure in the way we have developed understanding of security. And this failure to believe in the need for security to connect us to liberty, to tranquility, to life, to pursuit of happiness. Because if we don't have connection between security and life, justice is useless, because there will be no life. As I was preparing for the remarks of this philosophical reflections on the concept of security, I looked at an article that showed a tragic situation in one of the cities in Poland, in Opole Voivodeship. There was a city there that was not a very big city, it was medium-sized. And then something happened in 1992 and the whole city was evacuated. And the reporter was showing pictures of those empty buildings. That city had huge value. There were lives there of whole families, there was money there, there was a purpose of economic activities, there was connection to other institutions. And I asked the question, when the indifference to the life of the whole city is so huge that the whole city disappears, that life pulsating in the city becomes emptiness and vacuum, we know that there is a problem with decision making, because even during political transitions, we simply transform the purpose of property to another life-connected purpose that would continue life. So when life disappears like this, you know that there was a failure of thinking of that connection between security and life. And we have situations like this in America as well. There is such push on matters of security disconnected from liberty that whole areas become empty. And that includes also economic activities. And that leads me to another aspect of security, and that is vision of security. If vision of security, our eyes, are disconnected from vision of life, that security may create rules and regulations that destroy life. So, by preventing from a danger of one kind, they create danger of a different kind. I'm very lucky that my grandmother, Janina, understood this. She, from early childhood, taught me that any matter of feeling of security and safety must be connected to the earth and life. For her, earth meant source of nurture, nutrition of life, food, dwellings, animals, people. So she understood very powerfully that if, for instance, she had a dog that would destroy other dogs, then that dog would have to be dealt with, because the dog did not understand that security that he was supposed to provide for the household was to also care for other dogs. So we have to rethink how we define security in connection to liberty and life. Because if we create security that will destroy life, then we end up with nothing. So, as we are entering this amazing anniversary of October Revolution 1917, we have to rethink the achievement of the last 100 years in terms of what was gained and what was lost. And that leads me to another aspect of security, and that is divine security. What is divine security, and how is it different from security of other kinds? And you can look at online definitions. There are many definitions of security. There are many articles. This topic also is very rich in high-level discussions and books and articles. So in order to think about divine security, we have to really turn to the Bible. And I'd like to look at some of the sentences in Psalm 91, because Psalm 91 is really totally devoted to divine security matters. So let's look at this.
He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will find rest in the shadow of the...
So right here we have whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High. So divine security, the very first definition, begins with house. Location of where our life is, location of where our heart lives. So we are fooling ourselves if we think that we'll create security if the population is in fear of losing housing or lives in houses that are run by real estate terror, or lives in houses that are so expensive that there is no money for food. So, in my opinion, redefinition of the concept of security in connection to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and just pure joy of life has to begin with understanding of sense of security and safety. And sense of security and safety is at the personal level, at the city level, at the regional level, national level, world level. But if we ignore a sense of personal security and safety, if people feel that their lives are endangered because of the housing situation, no matter what you do at the national level, there is going to be pain and torment of lack of security of the citizens, and that creates vulnerability for enemies of those citizens to exploit it and to destroy the nation. So if we think that we can create national security without housing and safe and joyful place of dwelling for the citizens, then the success will never come. And God Himself is teaching this in this amazing psalm. And of course, for those of you who read the Bible, there are many examples of how important the housing is to create a sense of security, safety in individuals and in the nations. Jesus Christ himself draws attention to this because he is born in a stable. Doesn't mean his family didn't have a house. They had a beautiful house, but they were called to be on a journey, and during that journey he was refused any place to live except to show his divine life in a stable, house for the horses. So how powerful it is for God to tell us that the main reason God shows up on earth is because of the housing security situation. Obviously, at the highest level, we had that housing security in paradise, and we lost it through the sin of Adam and Eve. And somehow that set of wickedness around housing continues to be with mankind. So for us to have security that creates secure hearts, and in secure hearts is life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, then we will be successful. If we ignore that, no matter how much money you spend, security will never be achieved. It will always lead to another set of dangers. It will always create anger and rage among some people who feel that they can get away with any trauma to their neighbors that they can think about. There are victims who never even have strength to deal with their trauma. There are people who present themselves as victims just to scam others. So we have to create that sense of security in the housing first, and to promote that, and that will create a place for every living being to thrive. Because when a person is satisfied with his or her dwelling and feels safe in that environment, they tend to focus on eating and drinking and sharing this with others, on work. But when people feel threatened with their very existence because there is no right shelter, housing for them, then the weakest will just die off, and the strongest will create wars and all kinds of violence. So we have to look seriously at the national level on that matter. It's not being done. There's a lot of talk about healthcare, about immigration policies, but those are really secondary matters, because healthcare really concerns people who are sick or injured, immigration, those who are immigrants. But housing situation concerns everybody. That's truly national and international matter. It is international because we have connections to global economy. So people come and live here, sometimes just for a short period of time, sometimes for a longer period of time. But we cannot just pretend that we are like 300 years ago, when there were only 13 colonies and nobody else around us. Since the American independence, we have become empire. We have people here from all over the world. So we have to adjust security that shields all of those who are here on this land, because that is security of relationships, and that creates foundation for good relationships with all of those who are in other countries and other lands. So I encourage us to focus on that matter of security from the point of view of security connecting us to good, preventing separation from good. And the more that connection is created, the easier it is to deal with things who truly are dangerous, because then a foundation of goodness is created to security. So when something is bad, it will be easily detected. Which leads me to the next topic from Psalm 91, which is resting in the shadow of the Almighty. Ultimately, security is about being relaxed, being in tranquility. So when we connect to the security from God, divine security, we can relax. Why? Because He loves us, He created us, He understands our strengths and our weaknesses, and He wants us to be guided so long as we are here on earth to Kingdom of God, even if it is in the last breath of our lives.